today with Tom Surgey. Tom, how are you?
Hello, Nick. I'm so good. I'm fantastic. I'm having an absolute whirl of time, and it's so sunny and beautiful. And look, it's prime wine weather, as if there were any other thing. But it's great.
I
We're
love
okay.
that. You just said that whatever day, whatever weather it was.
Yeah. Cozy by the fire. It's autumnal. It's red weather. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, whatever the vibe works. Wine. How are you? Are you okay?
I'm
All
doing
right.
good. I'm doing good. Listen, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, prime wine time. Yes.
True. This is true. This isn't wine, by the way. This isn't me keeping wine. This is
Tom, listen, I've known you now for a long time, and something that's always, how did you manage to find combining your job with your passion? How do you manage to swing this one?
It's one of those things, isn't it? Because it's something that I think people often aspire to, doing something they love for work. And so, so getting up every day and just engaging with something I think is brilliant. And I've built this little ecosystem now where I do that, and it's fantastic. And it is fantastic, and it's everything you hope it's going to be. But then at the same time, you never extract yourself. You do find yourself sort of, well, like today, in that glass is various different tonic waters, and I haven't started on the sherry yet. But while I'm doing other bits today, I'm tasting different tonic waters to work out the Fino sherries that I'm going to incorporate into these cocktails for summer, called a Fino and tonic. It's great, and so you sort of never really extract yourself. So there's a risk of losing the pure joy of it, sort of thing. But I, for some reason or another, have managed to completely avoid that. I'm like the happiest man on the planet. It's great, and I get to spend time with my family, and I get to kind of build this whole thing around it. And crucially, in my world, Nick, I think the quick answer would also be, trying to learn more about the non-alcoholic category as much as I possibly can as well. You've got to have something that bridges the gap in wine tasting after wine tasting after wine tasting. So that's the thing. Yeah.
So a couple of questions about that. Firstly, I should ask, how is the non-alcoholic drink these days? Where's the landscape of it?
It's never been better. So there's never been a better moment to not be a drinker. There's a huge generation of people coming through now who are either not drinking or are only drinking alcohol on a really minor basis. The kind of the culture, if you like, of enormous amounts of partying and drinking all the time is kind of gently kind of ebbing away, I think, and that's no bad thing. That's a really good thing. And so I think booze in 2023 is the same thing booze has always been about, and there's been the important positive tenet of alcohol, wine included, is the whole social lubrication thing. Is bringing people together, sharing a bottle of wine, gently alleviating any inhibitions and things, and just almost like the ritual of opening bottles and pouring and serving, is really like quite fundamental to our really more important things, which is everyone getting having a nice time. Yeah. And there are non-alcoholic drinks that do that now really well, whereas I think historically the whole non-alcoholic category has kind of missed that. It's been slightly, crack open a can of Coke and just sort of quaff away at something quite sweet. It's quite boring. And so now non-alcoholic wine is everybody is trying to make great non-alcoholic wine. Nobody, and I've tasted everything, so I feel really confident saying it, nobody's making any good still white or red wines, at all. They're most challenging. But the sparkling category, they've nailed. So you can drink fizzy non-alcoholic wine from brands like Wildlife and Wild Idol and these sorts of things that are now readily available brilliantly, and they give you so much of that same kind of joy. But then I think the exciting bit is other things like kombucha, Jun kombucha, which is green tea kombucha, like Nunk. People making great soft drinks like Punchy or Boda, brands like that, who are making really interesting kind of non-artificial ingredient, natural kind of soft drinks that are fun and frivolous and delicious, but have got more layers of complexity. And so it's literally never been a better time. There's definitely the opportunity to go out and have whole evenings off the sauce and still have this lovely elevated, lifted, positive kind of feeling. So I think it's good. I think it's all right.
So when we're having one of those evenings, whether it's alcoholic or non-alcoholic, from your perspective, and you're hosting it, and you're kind of, what are you hoping that I'm feeling? What are you hoping that I'm trying to get out of it?
Well, I think so. I struggle often to work out what my title is really, because I think for a lot of people they expect a wine tasting to be quite sincere, I suppose, and technical. And I think there's a place for that, and I think it's really good. And I go to some of those myself as a punter, as an enjoyer sort of thing, and I think that's fine. But actually, my angle is way more about that bringing together of people, that building of community in whatever sense that is, alleviating kind of stresses, and just having a nice time and a human connection. And the lovely thing about wine, or what I particularly think wine does well in that, is it's like a platform to articulate a story. It's people, it's place, it's culture, it's different flavors. It's an opportunity for people to engage with something that isn't necessarily in their day to day. Not very many people wake up first thing in the morning and think, what was the vintage like in Tuscany, last year? How did that go? And this artist who's just bought this amazing castle, what's he all about? Like, what's going on there? And so I think trying to using wine as an opportunity to kind of articulate that and bring people together with all these different ideas and kind of creative elements, that's sort of what I try and do with an event, and make it as much like hanging out in the pub with your mates and sense of bringing everyone together as you possibly can be, and sort of accidentally communicating things about wine as we people will via osmosis accidentally pick up a few bits, but it's mainly about having a nice time.
Can I ask? I mean, I thought that was actually beautiful what you said, but I think kind of what fascinated me is everything you said about how I perceive the wine industry when you do wine tasting and stuff like that. You summed up nicely in terms of sincerity, which I think is a very polite way of saying it. Do you get met with resistance about who you are and how you come across, because actually you're cheapening how like austere the whole thing is?
It's an interesting point, and yes, sometimes I do. So I do a touch. I certainly don't set out to undermine anything. I mean, look, I love wine. I came through restaurants. I grew up in hospitality. Since 14, I've literally done nothing. I have no transferable skills whatsoever. So I grew up in pubs and bars, got into wine through this amazing general manager of the Ivy, the original Ivy, in Covent Garden, where I was lucky enough to be for 4 years, and did a lot of my wine training. And Saturday one day on the floor just said, mate, you're going to love wine. If you like beer and whiskey, I started getting into the idea of flavour through that. It was like, you're going to love wine. And so I've done really high level qualifications. I have my diploma in it. I started, or just about began to do my master's, but or master of wine thing. But we had kids, and that was put on the burner for a bit, and still has remained there. Which I think it probably will. I've got no plans to change it. And so I've got really high level qualification in wine, and I do quite a large amount of still joyfully fun consultancy with drinks brands, like wine brands and spirits brands out there, which is mainly about how they go to market and retain their soul. How do we take a product that is just beautiful and get it into restaurants working in a way that actually people can kind of enjoy it for what it is, and not become too commercial. And so I do a little bit of that. So I've got enough pedigree in the industry where I'm respected enough that I can kind of then, I think, use that platform to. That's almost like an arbiter. That's there going, look, he knows what he's talking about, and he's good at it. He's professional. There you go. And then I think in my own presenting career, which is the vast majority of what I do now, that allows me to, pull away from the norm and the usual narrative, and actually sort of, it's not undermining it at all, but it's just saying, actually, people connect with this in a way that is different to the way that the industry usually hopes they're going to. It doesn't have to be educational. It can be educational without it being, formal, perhaps, sort of thing. And so fundamentally, as we touched on before, in a world where I'm drinking less, you're drinking less, everyone's being slightly more conscientious and careful about it. If you are going to drink something, it better give you an interesting experience. It better heighten, your experience of something that's already great anyway. And it's never been more important than that. And so actually, I think bringing these amazing products and connecting with people in a way that isn't, too geeky or too technical or too dry, I think it's the future, and it's working. I'm busy. It's working. It's great.
No, but you come. The thing is, what you do is you bring, and having been with you with numerous wine tastings and internally with the team as well, the fact you bring it alive and it's a story is amazing. Let me ask you one last question, and it's frivolous, but I've always wanted to ask. Are you like the rest of us, that you've been out for a night and you've ended up drinking maybe not the most pleasant drinks, but kind of just because you're in the moment, or does your natural kind of you will always refuse the things that aren't good for you?
That's a really good question. Oh, crikey, I certainly don't refuse the things that aren't good for me. So I should practice what I preach. But but no, you definitely, the more you taste and the more you enjoy it, and the more great wine experience you get to have, the more I think you appreciate that, and probably your frame of reference is hotter, so you know if you have a glass of something when it isn't great.
Yeah.
And I'm quite good at avoiding that. The same thing though, or within the same breath, I'm so not a snob about it. And so one of the greatest joys in the world is, and we did this yesterday, we walked over to a pub round the corner. We live down in Sussex, and walked across the South Downs, had an absolutely wicked, like really genuinely delicious pint of Stella. And because there was very little else in this pub we hadn't been to. And it was amazing, and it was joyful and delicious, crisp, easy drinking lager. It doesn't, in the moment, it was absolutely the right thing. But then, to be fair, Nick, I did only have one. I didn't, had I had amazing opportunity, like had there have been, I don't know, a couple of incredible beers that I hadn't found elsewhere, I probably would have snuck two in and sort of go, oh, I've got to do it way. So it probably moderates my sort of effort. But no, I think the key thing is to drink widely, drink everything, every price point, every style. If you think you don't like something, if you're in a position where you can venture, 5-10 quid here or there to try it and keep trying it, then I think it's a good thing. And you're never going to know what you absolutely love if you haven't kind of explored the avenues where you go, actually, I don't like that. The key thing is just remembering why you don't like it, trying to help build up that frame of reference. But sometimes not remembering and just having a good time is a good thing.
Yeah. Tom, on that note, thank you so much indeed. Lovely speaking to you as always. Have a good day.
Thank you.